Something very different is happening inside the Ravens building right now, and honestly, the early signs are starting to catch everybody's attention. The energy at OTAs reportedly feels completely different. Players are already showing stronger chemistry. The communication between coaches and stars is being talked about heavily behind the scenes. And even situations that normally would have created controversy are now being handled in a completely new way. But what may shock Ravens fans the most is how quickly Jesse Minter seems to be changing the atmosphere around this team after only the first few off-season practices. And when you combine that with the reactions surrounding Lamar Jackson, the emotion around Derrick Henry's OTA scare, and the growing excitement around several young players, it suddenly feels like something much bigger may be building quietly in Baltimore right now. But before we continue, make sure you smash that like button if you truly believe this Ravens team is heading towards something special this season. And I also want you to comment down below with one word that describes your optimism for this team right now. Let's fill the comments with positive energy for the Ravens heading into this new era. Now, one of the biggest topics during these OTAs has been communication. That word keeps appearing over and over again in the reports coming from the team. Jesse Minter reportedly emphasized communication as one of the most important goals of this offseason, and according to what was discussed around practices, players are already noticing changes. Roquan Smith was reportedly calling out defensive plays quickly, the defense was getting lined up faster, and that extra preparation time was allowing players to react better to what the offense was showing them before the snap. But the most interesting part of this entire situation involves Lamar Jackson. Because even though Lamar was not present during the two recent voluntary OTA sessions, the reaction around the situation has been very different compared to previous years. And according to the reports, that difference comes down almost entirely to communication. The reports explained that in previous years, when Lamar Jackson missed voluntary activities, there was often uncertainty surrounding the situation. There seemed to be a disconnect at times between Lamar and the previous leadership structure. But according to the latest information, Jesse Minter already knew exactly why Lamar was absent and reportedly had direct communication with him regarding the situation. Jeff Zrebiec reported that Minter described Lamar Jackson as one of the leaders during Baltimore's offseason program, while also explaining that the quarterback had a couple of things going on Monday and Tuesday that prevented him from practicing. That is a major detail because it changes the entire tone surrounding the situation. Instead of uncertainty, there was clarity. Instead of speculation, there was communication. According to the report, Minter even said he expected Lamar Jackson back soon and mentioned they had already been having great conversations together. He also made it clear that certain discussions between him and Lamar would remain private. And Ravens fans are paying attention to this because for nearly 2 decades, the organization operated under one system, one leadership structure, and one way of handling situations publicly. So naturally, every small difference under this new regime stands out immediately. The reports repeatedly emphasize that Jesse Minter is actively trying to create stronger relationships and more open communication throughout the building, and early signs suggest players are responding positively to that approach. Another huge moment from OTAs involved Derrick Henry, and for a few seconds, Ravens fans everywhere probably stopped breathing. Reports described a scary moment during practice when Derrick Henry went down after a collision and did not immediately get up. According to the information shared afterward, the atmosphere reportedly became extremely quiet at the Under Armour Performance Center, and even Trey Hendrickson along with other defensive players reportedly took a knee while watching the situation unfold. Thankfully, the scare did not last long. The reports explained that Henry collided knee-to-knee with a defensive player after a fake handoff. He stayed on the ground briefly, flexed his knee several times after getting up, and then returned to practice not long afterward. Even better for Ravens fans, Derrick Henry later joked about the situation himself, saying the ground felt like a little bed for a little while, and even joked that he wanted to give reporters something to tweet and write about. That reaction from Henry probably relieved everybody inside the building because the concern was clearly very real for a moment. The fact that teammates immediately reacted with concern shows just how important he already is to this group and how emotionally invested players are in each other right now. And there's another interesting layer developing during these early off-season sessions, the growing excitement around younger players and newcomers. Ethan Burke, an undrafted defensive end out of Texas, was specifically mentioned as someone fans should keep an eye on because of his ability to play both inside and on the edge. Reports described him as a massive presence at 6'6" and 267 pounds. There was also strong excitement surrounding players like Zion Young and Adam Randall. According to the discussions coming out of the team environment, there's a growing belief that this new coaching staff is approaching things with a clean slate mentality. meaning opportunities could open up for players regardless of previous roles or seniority. At the same time, another major theme emerging around the Ravens is patience. Several discussions around the team emphasize that this is a first-year head coach entering a completely new era, and mistakes or growing pains are naturally going to happen along the way. But many fans are hopeful because they believe the foundation being established right now, especially communication, chemistry, and accountability, could become extremely important once the season actually begins. The biggest thing Ravens fans seem to be noticing right now is that Jesse Minter is not just talking about culture changes. According to the reports, he is actively implementing them immediately. And after only 2 days of OTAs, players already appear more connected, more vocal, and more comfortable around each other. What also stands out from everything happening around these early OTA sessions is how much emphasis is being placed on accountability without turning every situation into unnecessary drama. That is one of the clearest differences being highlighted right now. When Lamar Jackson missed the voluntary sessions, the reports did not describe panic, confusion, or public frustration. Instead, the entire situation sounded organized, calm, and direct. Jesse Minter reportedly already knew what was happening, knew why Lamar was absent, and already had an expectation for when he would return. That may sound simple, but inside an NFL locker room, those details matter a lot more than people realize. Players pay attention to how situations are handled publicly. They notice whether communication is strong or weak. And according to everything coming out of Baltimore right now, the Ravens are trying to establish a much stronger internal connection between coaches and players from day one. That keeps becoming one of the biggest themes surrounding this new era. Another thing that really jumped out from these reports is how relaxed and confident players seem around each other already. Derrick Henry joking after the injury scare probably helped calm everybody down immediately, but it also revealed something else. This team seems comfortable around one another. Henry could have simply walked away from the situation quietly, but instead he joked about it afterward and lightened the mood. And Ravens fans know exactly why that moment created so much fear initially. The reaction described by the reports was immediate. The practice field reportedly went quiet, defensive players took a knee, and teammates were visibly concerned. That kind of reaction does not happen unless players deeply care about each other. It showed just how emotionally connected this group already appears to be during only the first phase of off-season work. At the same time, there's growing curiosity surrounding how Jesse Minter plans to use younger talent moving forward. One of the more interesting discussions centered around Zion Young and how a new coaching staff can completely reshape opportunities inside the roster. According to the conversations happening around the team, there is a belief that previous depth chart status may not matter nearly as much anymore because this coaching staff is approaching everything with fresh eyes. That is why names like Ethan Burke and Adam Randall are creating intrigue among fans already. Ethan Burke was specifically mentioned because of his versatility and physical size, especially his ability to potentially contribute both inside and off the edge. Meanwhile, Adam Randall continues generating excitement because of the different ways he could potentially be used offensively. The discussions around him focused heavily on versatility and how he could create different looks depending on formations and alignments. And honestly, one of the smartest points brought up during all these conversations was the importance of patience. There is obvious excitement surrounding Jesse Minter right now because fans are seeing immediate cultural differences. But several people around the discussion also acknowledge that this is still a first-year head coach entering a completely new situation. Expectations are naturally high, but patience may